You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. Of course, a proud member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all of those great shows. Greg Bedard and Taylor Kyles and Brian Hines and Mike Cadlick and gee, many Christmases, so many of them. But make sure you go on and subscribe to those. But for tonight, it's your boy Pat Lane here with my guy Matt St. Jean. And Matt, for the love of God, get us to the freaking regular season. I can't do it. I can't do it with talking points anymore. I can't.
Yeah, we've hit the point where it's just all like, not fluff, but like, it's all small sample size things where it's like I just want to know what's real and what's not, or stories that aren't actually stories.
It's just the frustrating part for me is it's all reactionary stuff. And the hard thing for me is like nobody remembers the preseason. Nobody cares what happens in practice. It's practice, for God's sakes. Nobody cares and nobody remembers. Like no one. And it's like, the guys that excel in the preseason, that doesn't really mean anything either. The one guy I can remember, it's a deep pull for you. The one guy that I can, it's not going to sound like a deep pull when I first say it, but the one guy I can remember is Victor Cruz.
Oh, yeah.
UMass graduate. Okay. Patriots always played the Giants in the last preseason game of the season. They always did. Victor Cruz got like 3 touchdown passes against the Patriots in game 4. Right. And everyone was like, "Oh my!" I remember on SportsCenter, people were like, "Wow, this kid, where'd this kid come from? UMass and this and that and whatever." He didn't make the team. He was on the practice squad that year, or he made the team as like the 7th wide receiver. He didn't get. I don't think he caught a pass his rookie year. Came back the next year and made the roster and became a good player. And obviously ended up being like a Pro Bowl player and one of their better players. But like that's a guy that showed something in the preseason. And that kind of jumped his way in. And I know, Edelman had the punt return in the preseason and so forth, so on and so forth. But still, it's like, man, it just doesn't normally happen. And it's like nobody remembers what happens in the preseason, right? Like, let's just chill,
Yeah. I mean, I do think it matters, but things get overblown because this is all the football we have.
Right. Well, that's definitely true.
Yeah. That said, I will say I feel like today was concerning.
Yes, and I would agree with you on that. However, this is my overarching point, right, about today and yesterday, and we'll get into all of it. If the Patriots and Vikings played a regular season game right now, if the two teams walked onto the field right now for a regular season football game and they played in Minnesota, let's just say they played let's say they played in a neutral site. Their neutral site game, it's like some sort of college football game where they're playing at, in Arizona or something like that. What do you think the line would be? Because I think it'll be Vikings like -7.5.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So if that's the case and Minnesota is that much better than the Patriots, and they kind of held their own yesterday. And what's funny is that you heard different things from different beat reporters. The Patriots beat reporters were very much down on the Patriots yesterday. A lot of up and down, wasn't very good. And then you listen to the Vikings beat reporters, and they thought the Patriots pretty clearly won the day, and Drake May looked a lot better than J.J. McCarthy, according to the Vikings beat reporters. Today was not the case. Today, the Patriots were beaten soundly on both sides of the ball. But isn't that, like, shouldn't we have expected that going in? And that's kind of my, and I'm not saying that like I wanted them to lose, right? But I'm just saying that like you look at it and just say, yeah, the Vikings are a good team. you know?
I understand that. I think my concern is that you could make the same arguments about the joint practice last year with the Eagles. And it's, I think there's differences there. The joint practice against the Eagles last year was less competitive than anything that happened with the Patriots over the past 2 days. And kind of seems like of the two practices here, the first one was mostly a draw. And the second one was handily the Vikings. So if they had a second joint practice against the Eagles, they probably get smoked again. There's no, they're not going to have a draw against them. I think it's clear closer to the Vikings now than they were to, the Eagles last year. I also think it's important to remember that one of the selling points on this new staff coming in is raising the floor. Fewer bad days. This is just one bad day in a setting where, the result doesn't matter. So this could be as low as things get all season. It's also a little bit of a red flag, I think, to have a day like today where you get beaten in the trenches as badly as you do on both sides of the ball. I feel like that is very rarely a sign of good things to come. And, it's for the most part starters out there on the offensive line for New England, and for the most part starters out there on the defensive line. These are supposed to be your best guys out there, and especially on day 2 when you've gotten to game plan a little bit and you know what you're going against. Day 2 of a joint practice is where the coaching really starts to show up and where you're looking for player improvement on what happened the day before. And from what we've seen, that only happened on one side of the ball. It could just be a good day for one team and a bad day for the other, and that happens. I'm not going to overreact to it too much, but I do think it's concerning. You would have hoped to be more competitive today than they were.
I would definitely agree with that. And Randy makes a good point about Jared Wilson not being there today. I don't know if he was injured. I'm not sure if they're just trying Ben Bryant left guard, but Ben Bryant was a disaster at left guard. He cannot play. He cannot be your left guard starter. He can't be. I think, my thing really is when you look at what the Patriots did, right? And I think ultimately when you start looking at it, and look, they had some struggles. They definitely had some struggles, right? But then you say, okay, well, how about, 11-11? And this is just one sequence, right? But 11-11, May, Pop Douglas, low catch on an out. Hunter Henry, touchdown in the middle, off platform throw. Austin Hooper, touchdown over the middle on a tight window throw, and then a scramble touchdown. So 4 straight completions, 4 straight positive plays, and 3 straight touchdowns, right? That's solid, And then Dobbs hits Chisholm on a corner, and then Javon Baker for a TD between 2 defenders. That's 11-11 red zone drill. Right now, it's one sequence, right? That doesn't dictate the whole thing, right? But my point here is that they absolutely lost some battles, and if you were grading this, this practice, it would certainly be a loss for the Patriots, right? But I think they also did some good things in there as well, and I think for me, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see from them is you're going to make some mistakes. But then when those mistakes happen, how do you react to those? And then can you just make a play? I mean, and I know it's stupid, but they throw a touchdown pass to Kayshon Boutte at the end, right? And it's May's just kind of chucking it off his foot, right? He's just chucking it downfield, and Boutte goes up and makes a play between 3 defenders, and, so those are the types of things I think you can build on, even if it ends up that you have a bad day. And listen, I also think, I'll get into it, but I think for me to be able to put some positive things together and to say, okay, we can build off of this. We got to work on this, but these few things we did well, and we can build off of those things. I think that's at least some positives are coming out of it. Last year's Eagles, you mentioned, there was 0 positives. I was at that practice, and I was just oh my, there is no competition here. None. I could have taken some varsity team and put them on the field, and it would have been closer than the Patriots were. It was bad. Whereas today, I felt And of course, I wasn't there, so it's a little bit different. I'm kind of, but like there was some good mixed in with the bad.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see how it goes. I do think, it sounds like the way things went, the Vikings are happy, and I kind of doubt starters are going to play on Saturday. So I think Saturday is going to be another game where the Patriots' first stringers against the other team's third stringers. Unlike, I wasn't here on the post-game show, so I can kind of give my 2 cents there, especially
Right.
having watched the film. So the Patriots looked fine last Friday night. I think they had some really good moments, and I also think a lot of what happened was the fact that it was Patriots' first stringers against guys for the Commanders who, might not even be fighting for roster spots, just depth chart fodder over there. It might be more of the same on Saturday, which I will say, is good to do to a team what you did to Washington Friday night. When it's starters against backups, it should look like that. So that's not it's not necessarily a positive, but it's not a negative either. You're doing what's expected. You're playing the course to par. I feel like if things had been more competitive in the joint practices, maybe you get a third opportunity against some Viking starters in the game because Kevin O'Connell wants to get them some work, and I just don't think that's going to happen now, which is tough. And I think the most concerning thing to me, you go back to the preseason game, Will Campbell had some rough moments in pass protection and gave up a sack in there, which you watch back the sack that he gives up in that game, and it's the issue that occurred for him in college. He oversets, lets a guy get to his inside shoulder, and then because of that, because he oversets, he and Wilson aren't at the right depth with each other, and they can't pass off the rushers. So when they bring a game, you're just not in a position to play it correctly. So that's, one of the issues that had happened for him in college. And then you get to these last 2 days, and it's 1 or 2 sacks given up on inside moves with oversetting yesterday and Wednesday, and then today 3 sacks to Jonathan Grenard. And Jonathan Grenard's an elite level pass rusher, finished top 5 in sacks last year, grades out really well. You do also draft Will Campbell number 4 overall, expecting that he can block guys like that. So you hope that today is a learning experience. What is it they say? You're winning or you're learning in environments like this.
Yes.
I hope it's a learning experience. I think it's also fair to have some concern when you look at that and say we expected our guy to be able to handle that situation better.
Yeah, and listen, here's what I'm going to tell you, right? The Patriots had number 32 offensive line last year. And I said on this show, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, I'm looking for the Patriots to be in the low 20s this year. That jump would be a monster jump for a team that had basically no offensive line last year to come out and be in the low 20s, to be somewhere near the middle of the pack would be fantastic. And I think that, it's going to take Will Campbell some time. Now, listen, can he do it? I don't know, right? I think, in my opinion, PFF agrees with me, but in my opinion, I think that sack was more on Jared Wilson than it was on Will Campbell. I think that he is protecting his inside shoulder from the rusher, and that, for me at least, and again, for me, the guard is the one that sees that. The guard, that guy that's head up on the guard, he's the one that steps back. So the guard has to be the one to say, hey, get the hell out of here. I got this guy. You go block that guy. I don't believe that Jared Wilson did either of those. I think if Will Campbell left that guy and went to go block the other guy, that the inside guy makes the sack instead of the outside guy. And so, listen, it was one play. It was a miscommunication. Outside of that, he looked really good. Does that matter? No, not necessarily, right? And unfortunately, it's a position, and Will Campbell himself said it best, where he said, if you get 1 sack per game as a rusher, you're a Pro Bowler. You're an all-pro. You're getting drafted in the top 5. You give up 1 sack a game as a lineman, and you're out of a job. And I think that, that's the point. That's what it comes down to, is that you have to be better. And I think that he's going to get better. I still don't know if he becomes that elite level tackle. I don't, right? There's no way to know that, right? But I don't know if any of the guys they would have taken over him will either. Nobody does. The Chiefs right now are raving about Josh Simmons. Isn't that nice? Oh my God, isn't it nice that we haven't heard about every single law? Now, again, I'm not paying attention to the Chiefs camp as much as they indicate, but we haven't heard about every single loss from Josh Simmons. Oh, this guy suck. He can't. He's unbelievable. He gave up a sack in practice. I haven't heard anything like that. I've heard he looks great. And I mean, that must be nice. There's no way he's winning 100% of his reps. So it'd be really nice to just get a little bit of positive and not so much negative. And the problem is that there are people that wanted him to fail. They thought that he can't play left tackle. And so I'm going to squat on my take and I want to be right. More than I want the Patriots or him to succeed, I want to be right. And that's the stuff that pisses me off, where it's like, dude, just stop, and listen, maybe he has to move to guard, and that's okay. If he does, he does. And I think obviously that's not ideal, clearly, right? But if he has to move to guard, he has to move to guard. But he's playing left tackle this year, whether people want him to or not. He's playing left tackle, and I think he's going to be fine at it. He turns 22 in January. He's going to be 21 all year long. He's 21 years old, right? Like he's got a long way to develop, right? So he's got a long way to go. But I think from what I've seen so far, I think it's encouraging. A lot of people think it's not encouraging. I think it's encouraging what we've seen so far. And I think we have to all take like a collective breath in and just hold it for a minute. Like it's going to be all right.
There's a comment here from James, big fan of the show. I want to pull up because I think he says Campbell's a rookie. I get the concerns, but he's not suddenly going to have top level experience right out of the gate. I get this idea. Will Campbell was the number 4 overall pick, and the selling point on him was that he is an incredibly polished guy who can step in and play day one. But that is the selling point on him, is that the floor is high and there's he's not going to be a bust and all that stuff. That's he's not supposed to, he's obviously gonna have some level of growing pains. And we're gonna see, how this plays out against real competition here when we get to the regular season. But if things continue to look how they have looked in pass protection here, that is significantly worse than what he was sold as by many draft evaluators coming out of college. Because there was evaluator after evaluator who you hear talk about him say he's one of the cleanest and most polished pass blockers coming out of college they've seen. And people who listen to the show know that I didn't necessarily agree with that take, but these are people who are smarter than me who are saying that, and just from the tape in the games and the reports out of practice, that's not what I've seen so far. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned. And we still got a month to go here until the regular season. Maybe it was one issue that's plaguing them this week. They look at the tape, they clean it up, and they're back next week. And I think we have to know not to react too early to things, given that week 1, it's going to be Max Crosby coming to town, and Max Crosby will embarrass a lot of tackles in this league. So, the sky won't be falling if Will Campbell gives up 3 sacks in a game to Max Crosby week 1. That said, that's definitely worse than what your expectations were with this pick than you made it. You were hoping this guy could be a plug-in and play a left tackle at least an average starting level from day 1. And I think, we have to hold ourselves fair to those be the expectations set around this pick. You look at the offensive line, the moves they made on the offensive line this offseason only make any sense at all if you're penciling him in as a 17-game starter at left tackle from day 1 who you think can play at a high level. Otherwise, you're saying that they looked at the left side of their line and saw a first-round tackle who might not be that, and who knows what at left guard, which obviously Jared Wilson has played well enough to take that spot for now. Which is awesome, but not necessarily what they had in mind back in April. So, definitely some level of concern about the offensive line right now. I think it's 13 sacks given up across 2 practices. It's just practice. Plenty of learning can be done. But obviously, if things keep going at that rate, this line's going to be, not really any better than they were last year, at least in pass protection. The run blocking is a lot better. The run blocking I thought looked really good against Washington, and Campbell looks phenomenal there. But pass protection is the issue.
And listen, I'm with you, and I get it. I'm going to give you an example. Paris Johnson. Okay. Paris Johnson, who last year, in his second year, played pretty well. Was a maybe not the best tackle in the league, but was a pretty good right tackle. He only played 14 games last year because he got hurt. But last year he had and again, it's PFF. Like, so, you know, he had an 80.8 grade overall last year on PFF. His rookie year is 60.1. Right? So my point is that it doesn't happen immediately sometimes. Right? And I think, you know, that's the issue for me. I also think people are projecting him as a guard, and for me, right? For me, at least, he's never played guard before ever. He's never done it, and so for me, I look at it and say, well, why? Like, no, like he's a tackle, and you might say, well, he has short arms, okay, and that's okay. Again, 4 guys got paid this summer, including the highest paid offensive lineman in the history of the NFL. And all 4 of them had arms under 34 inches long, right? 2 of them had arms under 33 inches long, which is right where Campbell is at 33 inches. So now that doesn't mean he's guaranteed to do well. But my point is that his length is one thing, but like ultimately it comes down to, can he, you know, how does he win? And I think the issue for me, at least, and when I look at, well, it looks like we've lost Matt potentially, but the issue for me is that I just don't see it. I don't see the move to guard making sense right now. Again, maybe it will. But for me, I look at it and just say, he's a left tackle. Until I see differently, until I hear differently from someone else, I'm not going to believe that he's anything other than a left tackle. And, you know, that's the way I look at it.
My argument for him at guard is, like, if you look at his skill set, really the only issue he has as a pass blocker is when he gets in space. That seems to be his biggest thing. If you put him at guard, that goes away. He's a great run blocker. He has incredible core strength and mobility. And, like, you see, he's really able to square up guys at the second level and be a puller. And, like, you can use him. Like, he's tall for what would be a guard in this scenario, but his core strength makes that totally work for him anyway. And he's still able to maul guys. And, like, I thought he was very effective there all camp and in the game against Washington. Obviously, it's a projection if you're going to move somebody, but this is why, you know, I think it's Brandon Thorne, who's considered one of the best analysts out there, liked him as a guard because, you know, you remove the one area of weakness for him as a tackle and allow him to play in a smaller window where he can probably be more effective. You know, I think he'd be, if you made no other changes to his game, I think if you moved him to guard, he could be an all-pro. But, right, you know, that's obviously a projection when you switch someone, but I just think, like, I think he could be really, really, really good there.
Yeah. And listen, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think let's see how it goes at left tackle. And if it doesn't work, the big thing for me is that so many of the things that he does well are really good. And so when I look at it and I say, okay, he does, you know, he's a great leader, he's a hard worker, he's a phenomenal run blocker, he brings the right attitude, like those types of things are all great. He does have to refine the pass blocking stuff, right? Now, there's a reason why he wore the number 7 at LSU for the last 2 years, right? Now, obviously, couldn't wear it, but he wore a patch with number 7. Like, as a true sophomore, getting that number is outrageous. It's outrageous as a true sophomore, right? As a freaking left tackle, right? So, I just, for me, I want to see if the kid can grow into the left tackle.
Yeah.
I also think if he does turn into an all-pro left guard, then I'm fine taking him at number 4. I don't really care what anyone has to say about it. I'm fine. Because Quentin Nelson was a phenomenal pick in the top 5. And I know that for one reason or another, things didn't work out ultimately in Indianapolis because they couldn't draft a team, to actually play. But for me, I look at it and say, yeah, like, okay, sure. If he can be an all-pro left guard, I think that it still works out for you. Now, do I want that to be the case? No. Do I think that if he's a top tier, top 10 to 12 left tackle, is that probably more beneficial for your team? Yeah, probably. But I mean, Deshaun, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Never going to have another good offensive line ever. Like, just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. They haven't played a regular season game yet. Like, just take a deep breath.
Well, that's why, like, I'm not going to change my tune off of what I've been saying, which is that I expect him to play left tackle the whole season, and, let's see him actually play it before we start to render any real judgments. I'm going to give him probably the full season.
Right.
Put it this way, things would have to be so catastrophically bad during the season for him to move off of that and for it to be, that kind of judgment that fast. I expect there to be some growing pains here. That was, I think, one of the reasons I wasn't as high on him as others were, because I expected some, like this. I thought this is how this might play out, is that there was going to be a learning curve against some of these guys. Let's see how he adjusts. If he's able to make the strides we're hoping for there, because he's a fantastic athlete, and like you see the upside in the running game. I like there are a couple plays in the game against Washington that like honestly are not blocked very well, and the only reason they're decent plays is because Will Campbell is able to get out in space and operate. I thought Jack Westover actually had some really nice plays as a fullback. Mm-hmm. And Trevion Henderson just has such giddy up that guys can't chase him down from the backside, right, even if they're not blocked. Yeah. So that it allows you to get away with, there were a couple plays in there where it was like there were 3 or 4 bad blocks by the offensive line on a running play, and you were getting big gains because those guys all did well enough that you created a lane.
Yeah.
Which I will say, Trevion Henderson, it's incredible so far.
He's so good. Remember how mad people were? Do you remember how mad people were that they took a running back in the second round? I think you were one of them. Remember how mad people were they took a running back in the second round?
I still don't know if I like it, because like Nick Scorton's been banged up, but like he looks good. Donovan Izaraku looks good. Luther Burden looks good. Those are all the guys I also was interested in. Right. So like the long-term play of like, was this the smartest pick? I think it's obviously going to be up in the air for years until we see how everything plays out. But I had never doubt that Trevion Henderson was going to be a fun football player to watch, and he has lived up to that billing 100% so far. That opening kickoff against Washington was fantastic. Yeah. I think, honestly, the play that stands out for me the most about him from that game, it's early on, and May just hits him for a dump off in the flat. Washington brings a blitz. May realizes he's hot. He gets to his hot option, which is Henderson in the flat. Washington knows that the hot option there is going to be the running back in the flat, and they close on Henderson quickly. And he just shrugs off the tackle and I think moves the chains. Yeah, he's not just fast; he's also very sturdy, well built, and can break tackles like that. So, I think you come away from this Minnesota practice feeling very good about Drake May, Trevion Henderson, and Stephon Diggs, and maybe Pop Douglas, and then the rest of it is still very much up in the air.
Yeah, and listen, I think I do, just to go back to the Will Campbell thing. I think Marcus Bryant's played really well.
Yes, 100% agreed.
And if somehow Marcus Bryant turns into your left tackle, let's just say Will Campbell can't do it at left tackle this year, and they decide they're going to move him into left guard, move Jared Wilson over to center, and put Marcus Bryant at left tackle, and he's a passable, and he's an above average left tackle in the NFL. I think you're walking away from that feeling pretty good about this draft class, especially getting that guy in the 7th round. And then all you have to do is go out and get a right tackle next year. Now, again, that's a lot of projection. That's projecting Marcus Bryant to be an actual starter in the NFL. That's projecting Will Campbell to move over to left guard. That's projecting Jared Wilson to be at center, right? It's all that. But if that works out, you're looking at this saying the entire left side of the line and the center was fixed in one draft. I don't care who the guy is where you draft him. It doesn't matter to me. Get the right guys. And if Campbell then has to move to guard and Bryant's your left tackle, then you feel good about it.
Yeah. Again, I won't feel great about it if Campbell has to switch positions here, but you do what you have to do.
Right.
Marcus Bryant, I think, has beaten expectations so far. I
Big
don't
time.
think he's ever going to be anything great as a run blocker. I don't know if you want him as a starter, but I do think he's someone like right now. I think he's your clear third tackle. He can play both sides and he can pass protect. He's not going to be great at it, but he can do it. I think at a backup. We'll have to see how he looks against first team guys because he's basically only played second and third team guys so far. But against first teamers, if he can hold his own a little bit in pass protection, that's the best swing tackle, third tackle you've had in a bit. And it's
Long
someone
time.
where, all right, if Morgan Moses goes out, you can know that you can still run parts of your offense and, you can still throw the ball, things like that. So I felt a lot better there. Yeah, I don't feel great about the depth on the interior of the line, which I think we thought was going to be a strong point a little bit ago. I mean, Garrett Bradbury, I think, is very clearly the best center on this team. He had some A+ run blocks against Washington. He's shaky in pass pro, but all of these guys are. Ben Brown's fine for a backup center. And like everybody else, Cole Strange looks awful. Lade Robinson and City So are buried on the depth chart behind guys who are, just a guy in the NFL. Nobody on the interior stood out. I mean, and when you look at the depth, DeMontre Jacobs had some okay moments for a backup in the game. I thought Jack Conley looked very bad, out of place at points.
Yeah.
It's your sixth offensive lineman right now, I think, is Marcus Bryant, and your seventh offensive lineman is Ben Brown. And after that, I don't know who you even want to be on the 53-man roster. So I think that is a real question right now.
It's a big concern. It's a big concern because, as you said, Cole Strange is a guy that a lot of Patriots fans, and you have to assume the Patriots themselves, were hoping he would step in and be the starting left guard this year. And he looks off. He looks worse than he's ever looked. He looks awful. And so you have him. You have the two Robinson brothers who both don't look good. And, my goodness, like it's, as to your point, there's nothing there. I am almost surprised, and Matt actually mentioned it right here, and I was actually thinking the same thing. But I don't know why they don't move Conley into guard, to me, because I think it's pretty clear that Marcus Bryant's your third tackle, and DeMontre Jacobs is probably your fourth tackle, with Fedarian Lowe in there somewhere, right? There's no room for Jack Conley to play right tackle. So I don't know why they're still just move him inside and see if you get anything at guard with him, because you have no depth at guard. Zero. Nothing.
I think it has to do with the number of bodies there. They have a lot of bodies on the interior, and just the guys aren't that good.
Right.
They don't have any guys. Well, if Fedarian Lowe coming back now, they might have an extra tackle. I got to think of the math there. So you might be able to move Conley. And then Caden Wallace is someone who has been banged up, so I don't think we've really seen him here. Maybe he figures into this conversation and ends up being your eighth offensive lineman, or can outplay Ben Brown to be your seventh. That would be very nice.
Right.
But it feels like another offseason where, at least on the offensive line, all of the question marks are coming out a little bit worse than we were hoping. And that feels like it's been the story for a while here, Who's the last offensive lineman they picked up who was better than expectations? I think Ben Brown technically qualifies last year, but that feels like cheating.
Connor McDermott, maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, he's okay,
but he wasn't really a signing, right? He was
those are a street free agent.
I couldn't even tell you. I honestly couldn't even tell you.
It might be Michael Onwenu.
Oh, Michael Onwenu for sure. 6th round pick turns into a good player, right? But
2020,
yeah.
Which I'll say I'm a little worried about Onwenu too. I mean, there were a couple of reps where he was definitively losing reps against Washington, and I'm looking at the depth chart trying to figure out who that is, and it's a third string defensive tackle. Which that trio of extensions to Onwenu, Duggar, and Ramondre Stevenson has not aged well here a year and a half later.
No, it has not. And so, we'll see. Ultimately, I think that this team, if you can look, I think the receiving core has gotten significantly better, which is good.
Agreed.
That's a good thing. I think that the running back room has gotten better with Travion Henderson. I think that Drake May is starting to show what he can do, which is also very good. Now it comes down to the offensive line. And again, I just feel like going from 32 to, 15 was just unrealistic for me, at least. Whereas I think going from 32 to 22, it's a big jump, right? And so I think that matters. You weren't going to fix your offensive line completely in 1 year. I do wish they had traded for Tevin Jenkins. That was a guy that I had circled that I wanted them to trade for.
We both talked about that, and that was he was a guy who the whole league was lower on him than I think any of us expected. So I'm curious to see just how that plays out. Forgetting the Patriots angle.
Yeah. And the Bears, I think the Bears did a nice job. They obviously traded for Joe Thuney. They made some moves where they're trying to. Did they get Ryan Kelly? I believe they got Ryan Kelly, the center from Indianapolis. So I think that they went a long way to improving their team. Of course, they have Darnell Wright at right tackle, and I forget who their left tackle is, but it doesn't matter. But the point is that they went a long way to improving their offensive line. I think the Patriots need to continue to do that. I think best case scenario is that Will Campbell and Jared Wilson both start all year long. And you're looking at, let's develop these young kids as much as we can. Ryan Kelly went to the Vikings. That's my fault. Oh, they got Dalman, the center. Dalman.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Sorry, Drew Dalman. Thank you for I figured I knew people in the chat would know. I forgot who went where. But if you can develop those two kids and you feel good about them going into next year, then you can get another right tackle, and then you can go from there. And I feel like for me, there's a lot of good centers coming out next year, so you can draft a center at some point in the draft, and you can draft a right tackle at some point, right? And I think that, or sign a right tackle if that's the case, right? But I just feel like, and again, this goes back years. I mean, this is years in the making, unfortunately, right? Where we look at it and we just look at, say, 5 years ago when we let all those guys walk. And I'm not going to rehash it again, but that's just, it's one of those issues for me that, like, I look at it and just think, like, man, we could have had at least some talented veterans, and we don't have any of those guys here. And so you're starting from scratch. You had no one. You had zero good players here. And so you're starting completely from scratch with a clean slate. I mean, how good do you think it's going to be? It's just, unfortunately, this is where we're at.
Well, you talk about the offensive line. You talk about getting that pass protection number up. I want to get from 32nd to 31st right now. Like, I'm not even thinking bigger than that because, right now, both of your starting tackles have had some real shaky moments in practice. One of them is old and has been injured in the past, and I think is a fine Band-Aid option, but there were always going to be some issues there. He was your best option available, and also, it's not better than like a league average player. Your left tackle's a rookie, and he's going to take some lumps here. And your interior, Bradbury's not here for his pass protection. Onwenu, I don't really know what I'm going to get from him, and I like Jared Wilson at left guard so far, but he's also young and raw mentally, and there's going to be some lumps there as well. And you're one injury away from a rookie 7th rounder or DeMondre Jacobs or Ben Brown being right back in that lineup. And there's injuries. There's going to be injuries. There's always injuries. So, like,
right.
I feel a little shaky about it. And I think definitely the run blocking will be better than it was. They're good at designing that. I think you've got running backs who can help alleviate some of the issues. I will say, the game against Washington, impressed by all of the running backs. I thought the team attitude showed up well, and guys were falling forward through tackles. But the attitude, the physicality were there. I thought all three of your top backs looked really good. So, like, I think you can have something in the running game, but it's a passing league, and I'd like to be able to have my young quarterback drop back and throw the ball. And he's looked good despite the pressure this camp. He's been maybe their best player in Minnesota so far. how is this going to translate when it's live reps and, they can hit you for real and you're not wearing that red no contact jersey.
It's very true. I mean, listen, it's a fair that's a fair point. By the way, someone asked about Jedrick Wills. I believe he is still a free agent, right? But I think he's hurt. Isn't that the issue?
He's taken the year off. Yeah.
Right. So he's just not. Yeah. Unfortunately, he's not. Randy just said it too. He's taking the year off. Yeah. So
not a week ago, we felt worse about the tackle depth, but Marcus Bryant has played better, and the guards have played worse. So now my worry is all of a sudden back to the guard group, and then I do think part of it is like they invested in, Onwenu, Moses, and Will Campbell. I think are the three guys where there's been a somewhat sizable investment, and they were counting on those guys to be every game starters for you, and there's a chance that all three of those guys are just not going to be quite as good as you expected, which, it's one thing to say we have to patch one or two holes this offseason. If they never figure out left guard or center or whatever this year and you have to address that next year, you can address that next year. It's another thing if you have to fix that and some of the other spots are just not as good as you were hoping they were going to be.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it could live up to their expectations as well. And so, we're a long way away from knowing whether it's going to work out or not. And I think that that's something for everyone to keep in mind, that we just don't know, right? It's just, we don't know. And I think Will Campbell has looked good enough that I feel like, okay, I think he'll be serviceable. Do I think he'll be better than serviceable? I don't know. I'm not sure, and so that's something that I don't have an answer to, right? Yeah. And then we'll see what happens. I just I don't know. We'll see. But ultimately, I think that they're in a good spot, that I think at least there's some optimism, in my opinion. And I know people are down on it, and especially since the practice didn't go well today, people are flipping out. But, we just need to take a breath and realize that, we do have some good players. And I do think that that's going to show up at some point.
Hopefully. I will say we do only have 12 days now until roster cutdowns. Which is crazy. Joint practice, it's not hard to argue that the real competitive portion of camp is over. You still have 2 preseason games, but it's going to be one on Saturday where you're not going to go against starters, and then you turn around and you play a team on Thursday on a quick thing, and that's the last preseason game. It's probably going to be a lot of backups again. There's no more joint practices. So,
right.
If you're a guy trying to make the roster right now, your best opportunity to make an impact against, real NFL players on the other side may have already come and gone. Where that lands them in 12 days when they have to cut this down, I don't know. I don't know. It definitely feels like a roster to me where they might cut past 53 and look to pick up guys. So I feel like there's a number of spots on this roster where you're looking for guys to earn a roster spot and they haven't. I know we have to take an ad break, but we can maybe move over to the defensive side of the ball where we can talk about that.
Yes. Before we go over to the defensive side of the ball, I do want to talk just briefly about the offense on that, about that. But let's take an ad break first, and then we'll go there. This ad break, of course, is for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Football is back, baby. Football is back, and that means the football players can go into your Prize Picks lineup. And again, one of my favorite features is that you don't have to just have a football lineup. You could have a lineup with football players and baseball players and women's basketball players and, esports guys if you'd like as well. You can mix and match, which is fantastic. Again, Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and much more for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into and out of your account. Don't forget, Tuesdays is Taco Tuesdays, so they're discounted several projections on the board, usually somewhere between 50 and 25%. And Friday is Flex Friday. Make sure you opt in, and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the projected play. You could choose squares from any game on the board. If your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds up to your promo limit. Come on now. What are we talking about? What are you going to do? Download the app PrizePicks. Put in the promo code CLNS. When you play your first $5 lineup, you get $50 instantly. Once again, download the app PrizePicks. Put in the promo code CLNS, and you get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Okay, before we get over to the defensive side of the ball, 2 things on offense really quick. Number 1, stop talking about Josh Dobbs. Just stop doing it. Just stop talking about Josh Dobbs. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Shut up. Who cares? It makes no difference. It doesn't matter. He's the backup quarterback. No one cares. It doesn't make a difference.
There's not even 32 good quarterbacks in the NFL.
Just stop it.
We are a rebuilding team right now that has massive question marks at huge positions of need. I don't care how good the backup quarterback is.
Right.
I could not care less.
And you know what?
If he's on the field, something has gone wrong.
You know what? I want him to be the worst quarterback in the NFL because if freaking Drake May gets hurt, I want the Patriots to go 0-17 and get the number 1 draft pick. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. So it doesn't make a difference. Just stop it. Josh Dobbs is there to mentor Drake May. That's it. That's the only reason you're keeping a veteran quarterback over an undrafted rookie quarterback. It makes no difference.
I don't even think Dobbs is there to mentor. I think he's just there because he knows how to play football, and they don't really have to coach him, so they can spend all their time with May.
Right, and he can be kind of that. I think the idea of having those smart quarterbacks in the room that May can learn from, I think is beneficial. Brady talked about Hoyer, how much Hoyer did for him, from a just game planning perspective. And of course, at that point, Brady was, a genius in running the offense, but still Hoyer became kind of that go-to guy. And if Dobbs can be even a semblance of that for May, that's exactly what I'm looking for, And so at some point we can, take shots at guys in day 3, like the Patriots used to do. But for now, who cares? Just shut up about stupid Josh Dobbs. The other thing, and I have been literally pounding the table about this. I'm not going to actually do it because it's going to sound terrible on the microphone, but I've been pounding the table about this. Javon Baker is making the team. He's making the team. He plays all the special teams. Mike Vrabel clearly likes him. He's making the team. Afton Chisholm is making the team. He's done enough. So it doesn't matter to me. Mac Hollins is making the team. Shut up. What are you so upset about with Mac Hollins? He's like the most hated man in New England, and I don't understand.
And it came. Well, I don't know. Like Mac Hollins is fine. He's like league average. He's a replacement level player.
Right.
If he's playing, he does certain things well, he's going to get playing time because of that.
Right.
If other players play well, he won't be on the field. So those guys have to play well. I will say, I don't know if I would go as far as to say Afton Chisholm is making this team, but I do feel good about his odds just because I don't think the roster is great when you get down to the bottom of it. So, if keeping extra receivers makes sense, because if it's Afton Chisholm versus guys who just haven't played well for depth at another position, you probably just take Chisholm. Also, when they put the depth receivers out there, Kyle Williams stands out as being better than the rest of that group. The other guys all kind of look similarly good. Like Baker, Polk, and Chisholm, I don't see any massive difference between them and how they're playing out there. So I am curious how the coaching staff sees that. I do think they like Baker. Baker does the most in special teams. Chisholm has made some nice catches, and it's been hard to bring down. He's been physical through the catch. I do think there was one play that stood out to me with Chisholm where I think it was both outside receivers drew double teams. So Chisholm gets the over route against single coverage, and he just does not have the speed to pull away from the defender and ends up as an incompletion because of that. So that's where I get concerned about him. He's great underneath, though. Polk was a little bit better than I expected. Watching back the tape, he didn't really do anything in the receiving game, but I saw the aggression and physicality as a blocker that I thought he lost last year once he started to get into a mental funk. So I don't think he's playing well enough to necessarily make this roster, but for his sake, I'm glad that he's able to be a little bit more engaged. And whether he hangs around New England on the practice squad or lands elsewhere, he might have a real chance if he's going to be locked in mentally.
I also think too that there's a world where Jalen Polk just heads to the IR, and the Patriots just save him till next year, right?
Yeah.
He didn't practice at all this week. Didn't even travel to Minnesota, and so he's clearly not playing. Is he going to play next week? I don't know. And so they just look at it and say, we're going to throw him an IR, and we can designate him to return as well. So if things go horribly wrong, right, you can look back and say, okay, you know what? We can bring Jalen Polk in, if Kyle Williams goes down with an injury and Chisholm goes down with an injury and Baker goes down, and we're short on receivers. We can bring him back off the IR, and we have a guy potentially that we can use, right?
Yeah.
And so I think for me at least that makes sense.
Yeah, and a lot depends on how he has played as a receiver, which doesn't seem like he's made much of a splash at all. So I think the Jalen Polk experiment's probably over after this year. Maybe they keep him around and IR him. I do think the issue with Vrabel is he doesn't like injury-prone players, and Polk has been exceptionally injury-prone here.
Right.
Which is just not a good spot to be in. In some ways, it reminds me of like where Aaron Dobson was at this point in his career. It was like he played a lot his rookie year, and then you bring in Brandon LaFell, and he gets hurt his second year, and you basically never see him again. I completely forgot he was even in camp in 2015. You think of the 2015 Patriots, you don't even think Aaron Dobson's related to that team. He was in camp for them. Like maybe that's Polk. He gets injured, they bring him back to camp next year. He doesn't make the team, and that's it for him. While we're talking about guys in that spot, do we want to switch over to the defense here?
Yes. Yep.
I think one of the interesting battles in camp, in theory, is the battle for depth at linebacker between Marty Mapu and Jelani Tavai. Both guys are hurt right now, though.
Mm-hmm.
No one's making up ground. I didn't think Marty Mapu looked all that great in the preseason game. He looks like he's a safety trying to play linebacker now. I didn't see any physicality from him. I saw some real rough angles trying to tackle. So I thought that was two guys battling for a spot, and I think there's a world here where neither of them end up making the roster, and they just figure something else out at linebacker.
I'm kind of leaning towards them only keeping three and just rolling with the three that they have, because Mapu, I know Taylor Kyle's kind of posted some stuff about he looked pretty good on Friday night. I didn't see it personally, and again, maybe
a couple good plays in coverage.
Yeah, and so maybe you try to give him another year to develop as a linebacker, but I just, I wish that I wish they had put him right away at linebacker. It's so frustrating that they didn't. And that's frustrating for me, because now he's trying to learn this new position when he's been a safety, and he's been hurt. He gets hurt every year too. You're talking about guys that can't stay healthy. He gets hurt every year. It's just frustrating, and Tavai doesn't seem to fit what they want to do, and he's not on the field either. So
which I think is tough. It's Mapu making the leap he was making from where he was someone who's always going to need the practice time to make that adjustment. And he just hasn't really had it at any point because he keeps getting hurt. I just don't think he's durable enough for the NFL, which is a shame because I really liked him coming out. Thought he had something, and I don't. Maybe he makes this roster just because he can play in coverage, and maybe he gets healthy before cutdown day, and they decide to keep him. But he would have to feel very lucky, I think, if that happens, or he'll have to do something very special in one of these upcoming preseason games if he's able to play. I think while we look at that same position, Kyle Duggar, man, there's an argument to be made that he is like at best the sixth best safety on this roster right now, which sucks because he used to be so good. There's a play against Washington where he makes the tackle on a quarterback scrambling, but the angle he takes on it is horrendous, and he totally whiffs on his first attempt. He's able to recover and make a tackle, but you listen to Vrabel talk about his long road back from his injury, and you see that, and it's like, all right, this is a guy who's just not athletic enough anymore. Like he just doesn't look like his body is flexible or explosive enough to do the things that he's trying to get it to do, which sucks. But also Del Pettis is making plays. I thought Marcus Epps looked decent.
Did you see the did you see the rep today in 7-on-7 at the goal line?
I don't know if I did with Duggar.
Kyle Duggar. It's incredible. It's like it's incredible. I've never seen them like it before. Kyle Duggar is standing on the goal line. He's just standing there, just waiting for the play to happen. And there's like a guy running to his right, and there's a guy running back line to his left, and he's just like waiting for the quarterback to make a decision. McCarthy throws it, and he like then starts running over to his left, and he's like 10 seconds late, and it's like, what? He didn't even move. It was just like it's one of the worst. It's one of the worst plays I've ever seen. I'm just like, there's just no way that he can be out there. And so, I just don't listen. He was running with the twos. I was like, okay. I was like, all right. I'm happy that the kid's doing well. Well, then Peppers was out today, and I'm thinking, oh, okay. Well, no, Del Pettis jumps in, and you're like, oh god. Like now he's not even close. He's not even close.
Del Pettis plays better than Kyle Duggar in that preseason game. I mean, I can say that with 100% certainty. I felt very confident in that take. And I was someone who was a big Kyle Duggar fan after 2022 and the way he played that season. He almost single-handedly kept the Patriots in the playoff.
Really did.
Some of the plays he made that year.
Yeah.
And that's just not – that guy is not in there right now. So, maybe he's able to bounce back at some point, maybe a little more time away from some of these injuries, but – he's been horrible in coverage the last 2 years, and he's been banged up. This might be the time because, I think you could keep 6 safeties on this roster and not keep him if we're counting Schooler in that conversation.
Which is wild to think, but it's not wrong. And Danny mentions the contract, and you just say, like, like you said earlier, you talking about Ramondre, who, has been up and down. I think he's going to be okay if he can hold on to the ball. I think he's going to be okay this year. Mike Onwenu, who has been up and down and we're hoping can be a mainstay at right guard, but who knows? And now Kyle Duggar, who just can't play. Those were your 3 big signings last year. And it's just like, it's been a disaster. And so, my goodness, it's very frustrating. And so, look, I think ultimately defensively, the safety battle is going to be interesting. The corner battle is going to be interesting. I think Alex Austin's obviously on the team. The real question then is like the bottom of the roster guys. Is Miles Barrow going to make the team? Marcellus Dio isn't on the team anymore. Well, not that he's on the team anymore, but he's done for the season, right? So if he's done for the season, does his spot, like in my opinion, I think his spot goes to Javon Baker. Javon Baker becomes that special teams guy, and now you can keep another wide receiver because you were planning on keeping 6 anyways. And so, Javon Baker becomes that special teams guy. But then does that mean that you're not keeping Miles Battle? I think Miles Battle has a better chance of getting through to the practice squad than Efton Chisholm does. So if you like them both, then you say, okay, well, we're good with this. And, we kind of go from that. I mean, it's interesting. I do. Anthony Jennings, and we didn't talk about this because you weren't here, played to the very bitter end on Friday night. And that's just like, I love Anthony Jennings, but he's not going to be around.
When he looked good, I don't think he played poorly. I just don't know if there's a spot for him.
Right.
Going back to corner real quick, I think they keep 5 corners. I think it's Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, Alex Austin, Marcus Jones, and DJ James, which I think those are your best 5. I think it's pretty clear on tape that those are the best guys out there. Whose name I was just looking up to make sure he's not injured. Do you know whose name I feel like I have not heard in a month?
Who's that?
Isaiah Bolden. Is he?
Oh yeah, no, he just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah, nothing there. He was someone we thought might be a contender for that starting slot role. I don't even remember. Did he? He didn't play in the preseason game, did he? I don't remember seeing his number out there.
He might have a little bit.
Yeah,
but
he is way down. Like I saw Jordan Polk making some plays at corner. I don't think he can make the team, but I think he could be a practice.
Jordan Polk couldn't. He couldn't. The interception he had, the guy was so wide open on the slant, he just dropped it. And so you. But hey, whatever, dude.
It ends up making a play. But I do think the way that the Patriots are going to want to play this year with Mike Vrabel, I think you're going to see a lot of 3 safety looks. I think you might just see him keep 5 corners and 6 safeties, and you're going to start 3 safeties a lot of the days. And then you still have Del Pettis and like Marcus Epps back there as depth, and Schooler as a special teamer, and you might just put your depth there because I think Miles Battle has had some moments, but you can get him through the practice squad. I'm not worried about that at all.
I agree.
Kobe Minor, he's out there.
Yeah.
He looks fine. So it's like, all right, that's I have everyone else here. I'm not even that interested in.
No.
If you want to keep some of these guys in the practice squad, you can.
Yeah, but I think if you keep 6 and you go Peppers, Woodson, Epps, Pettis, and Hawkins, that's not bad.
And it's cooler. It's special teams. Yeah,
and
I think
Schooler,
that might
obviously, you know.
Yeah. When I think if you're building out a roster, the lack of depth in some other places, you might keep extra safeties. You might keep a couple extra wide receivers.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, another guy that I think is fighting his way onto the roster, I don't know if he's going to make it, is Isaiah Eaton.
Yeah.
Who, was a kid that they, I believe is an undrafted guy from Rutgers.
Yes.
Oh, you know what though? I think that's not true. I think they scooped him up this year. He was in Tennessee's practice squad last year.
He was. Yeah.
And they picked him up this year. He's looked awesome. Maybe not awesome. Awesome might be a little bit of a stretch, but he's made plays fairly consistently. And so I like what he brings to the table. Now, again, who knows? He's definitely a depth guy, but for a depth player, I like what he's given them. And so, so I like that there. And then the other question then becomes, and a few people have asked about Ponder, is, Isaiah Ponder has played pretty well at edge. And then the other guy is Truman Jones.
Yeah. Truman Jones played like kind of wire to wire. He was on the field the start and the end of the game on Friday. He had some moments. Ponder had a really good block in special teams on the kickoff, the one that Henderson returned, which that caught my eye right away. I thought he had some nice moments. We'll see if that turns into something more. I'm curious how many guys they keep at edge here, because Landry, Keon White, Caleb Chasen, Braden Swinson, those 4 are locks. Who after that? Because it's Ponder, it's Truman Jones, it's Anthony Jennings.
Right.
And then there's also going to be who you keep at defensive tackle, which I will say, like I thought Milton Williams looked fantastic. He is strong.
Yeah.
Tonga and Farmer, I think, are backup level guys right now, and that's fine. They're 3rd and 4th defensive tackles. I still think you end up keeping like Farms behind that. I thought Eaton had some moments, but I do think Farms is better. But they might not keep either. They might just go with 4 defensive tackles. You know who I am a little bit worried about? Keon White. Because he had some dominant pass rush wins against Washington. My issue is that when he's not dominantly winning pass rush reps, he's like losing them pretty badly a lot of the time. Not even be able to get engaged with guys, but shows up in the running game. And, he's young enough. I want to see not writing off anything here. I want to see the development. I think he's a starter. We're going to see what this turns into. But I am just a little bit concerned that he ends up being, a guy who was one of our best pass rushers the last couple of years, because we don't have good pass rushers, but who just can't take his game to that next level. So we'll see where that lands. I think right after having the conversation about Onwenu, Duggar, and Ramondre, but that transitions into the Keon White conversation, because those were 3 guys who we thought were B-level players who are worth re-signing because they're good. And they're not great, but they can help you win games. And immediately all of those contracts have looked bad. I'm looking at Keon White as possibly being someone in that same tier, depending on who he turns into this season. And the Patriots defense got absolutely shredded today by Minnesota. So I don't know any specific defensive player performances. There weren't a lot of details in there about who was giving things up on New England's defense. But, you're expecting Keon White to be your top edge rusher this year. And, you need him to take a step here, because he needs to get better to be that guy.
Absolutely. The good news about Keon White is he's not a free agent until after next year.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's not a bad player. You're keeping him. He's going to play for
Right.
you. He's one of your best pass rushers. It's just I think we're looking at the difference here between a guy who's a starting caliber edge on a good defense and someone who might end up being like a designated pass rusher for you when you get your defense where you want it to be.
Yeah. No, and that I totally agree with you. And I think too, for me at least, if you have Milton and Barmore next to each other, you're talking about like they're going to dominate in the interior of that defensive line. So what can you get from your edge if the defense is constant, or the offense, I'm sorry, is constantly worried about your two interior guys? Your outside guys should be able to win, right? Mm-hmm. They're not getting a lot of help, right? You're not getting a lot of help on the outside because you're worried about the two guys inside. And so Harold Landry, who I thought has played very well. Mm-hmm. I thought Landry's played well. I think that Kayvon Chasen has looked good. And I think, that Keon White has looked pretty good. If those three guys can put it together this year, and then you feel good about this Patriots pass rush. And I think, by the way, the pass rush was really good against Washington last week. It looked really good yesterday against Minnesota. Today, maybe not so much, but it looked really good, yesterday. I mean, the clip from yesterday is the long touchdown pass from J.J. McCarthy to Aaron Jones.
The running back, yeah.
That was a sack.
He gets sacked twice.
It's a running sack. And, right. So it's like, okay, you allow the big pass, but you also have pressure on the quarterback, and that's not going to happen in real life. And so, I don't necessarily worry about it as much. But, again, can those guys step up and create consistent pressure? And I think to your point, Matt, Keon White wins, he looks awesome. But when he doesn't win, now what? Does he have a plan when things aren't working right off the bat? What am I going to do now? Right. And I don't know if he does.
Well, when his first punch doesn't land, he kind of like, that's it.
Right.
And it's not even an effort thing. It seems to be just knowing what to do thing. And his first move isn't like, it's weird because he does win a lot. My issue with Keon White isn't that he doesn't get pressure. He gets pressure pretty well. Like, he was going against backup offensive linemen in Washington, and it's really dominant plays out there where you look like he expects to. It's just the other ones. You want him to stalemate a little bit more often, and that's where he becomes an issue, a liability in the running game. It's just that when his first move doesn't work, he loses his leverage immediately, and he lets offensive linemen get their hands right into his chest. And once that happens, the play is over, and he gets pushed out of the way, and that's that. So that is definitely an area of growth where I've wanted to see that growth. His first two seasons, still haven't seen it yet. So hopefully I have a lot of faith in this defensive coaching staff, so you're hoping that through the year he's able to grow. Because that has been another thing for Keon White. He starts off very hot and then has faded a little bit in each of his first two seasons. So he's a guy who I want to see that development happen here in season. Can you have more of a repertoire as a pass rusher and more counters and more ability to protect yourself and just not lose reps as well, I think would be very useful to his game. He's a very strong player. If he can get his hands on you, he can be competitive. It's not really about strength. He just loses leverage easily. So gotta fix that, because I think your one weakness, your one issue here is a defense. You're supposed to win against the run by penetrating, less so than by staying in gaps. But if he's not able to penetrate or keep his gap on a number of plays, then you need guys to cover. Which we'll say linebacker play Saturday night or Friday night, a lot better than what we saw.
Yeah.
I clipped it and I have to put it out. There's a play early in that game where Truman Jones, Milton Williams, and Kairos Tonga all create some havoc, where like Milton Williams is into the backfield immediately on a play and breaks it up, and Tonga does enough too, and so the linebackers are able to avoid offensive linemen coming to the second level, and they also were able to do that because they read what's happening quickly enough, and they get over the top, and they're both fast. Because who was it? Spillane, and I don't remember who the other linebacker was.
Maybe Ellis.
Ellis, that's who it was.
Yeah.
They both read it properly, quickly, get over the top, and then there's nowhere to go. Truman Jones gets into the backfield, so the running back has to like really take his time to get around the corner. And by the time he gets into open space, there's two linebackers coming full speed at him. And it's like, that's how that's supposed to work with all those guys working in unison. So I thought that looked fantastic.
Yeah. And I we'll see. It's a long way to go, but I am excited about the play of year 2 lineup because I think Jack Gibbons has been fine. I don't think Jack Gibbons has been like the best player ever, but he's been pretty good. And he's a guy that can go in there and spell guys from time to time. And so, I think those are your 3 linebackers. I think Ellis, played well last year. I'm excited about Ellis this year as well. So, we'll see long term, but I'm happy about what I've seen from them thus far. If that continues, we'll see. But I like what I've seen so far.
I think this team's clearly better than they were last year, and then I also think today put maybe a damper on exactly how much better.
Right.
There have been hopes that this is a 9, 10, 11 win team. ESPN put out their article about team floor and team ceiling and had 6-11 and 11-6 for New England. And, I think today you saw why they might end up being a 7 or an 8 win team, maybe a 6 win team. I would doubt that, but a 7 or an 8 win team instead of a 9 or a 10 win team this year.
This is the thing, right? I've been saying since day one, 8 wins, right? We've been pretty consistent here about 7, 8 wins. That's what we've been. Yeah. We've been consistent about that because it's a growing process. They're not a playoff team right now. They're not. They're not. They're not there yet. Yeah. Right. And so, look, could they? I think there's a chance that if Will Campbell all of a sudden becomes really good and Morgan Moses can stay healthy and plays well all year long and Garrett Bradbury can play well and Jerry Wilson plays well. I'm like, if the offensive line all of a sudden is a top 10 to 15 offensive line and the wide receivers take kind of a step up, well, okay, then it's like, all right, maybe we can do this, but I don't see that necessarily. Could go that way. Tony's asking what Bill did with Cam. He went 7-9 with Cam. Right, 7-9, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good, except they were a playoff team the year before, and they won the Super Bowl 2 years before that. So,
they did also have a number of COVID opt-outs that year, and Gronk's retirement. Well, Gronk retired after 2018, but
right. But nevertheless, yeah. And by the way, Randy's mentioned that they have the easiest schedule in the league. I will once again repeat, and I will shout it from the rooftops. Preseason strength of schedule is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Nobody cares. Preseason strength schedule makes zero difference in the world. Yeah. By the way, they're playing the Bengals again, and the Bengals sucked last year, but they're playing the Bengals. Do you know who finished last in the AFC West last year? That would be the Raiders.
Oh,
do we think the Raiders are going to be better? We do think the Raiders are going to be a lot better this year than they were last year. So that's that's what I'm saying to you, is that the strength of schedule doesn't matter. It makes no difference. Now, I'm not saying that they're playing the best strength of schedule, but when we look at the end of the year, I think those teams are going to be better than we expect. Period.
Well, teams are dynamic. What team I think is going to be a lot worse than people expect based on the reports right now is Miami.
Oh, they sound so bad.
They sound horrendous. Justin Fields can't throw a football, so I don't know what the Jets are going to be. Like, the Patriots might end up not being good and also finishing second in this division. So Connor Orr for Sports Illustrated predicted all 272 NFL games. For an article, and he has the Patriots finishing at 8-9 and second in the AFC East because the Jets only win 7 games and the Dolphins only win 6, which feels very plausible. Do you want to hear how he has the Patriots schedule breaking up?
I would love that. Also, Randy's arguing about Pittsburgh's a bad team. That's false. Carolina's a pretty good team.
Well,
I think.
Even if we say the Patriots have 9 games against bad teams, I mean, this is the Patriots team that has routinely lost games to bad teams for the past 5 years. So just because we play bad teams does not mean that we're going to beat them. I would like us to. I would hope. Connor Orr.
Yes, go ahead, Connor Orr. Let's hear it.
win against the Raiders, loss in Miami,
Disagree.
win against the Steelers, then a losing streak. Losing at home to Carolina, losing at Buffalo, losing at New Orleans, then 2 wins at Tennessee and against Cleveland, losing to Atlanta and Tampa. You beat the Jets, you lose to the Bengals, you beat the Giants, you have your bye week. And then you get a win over the Bills. Yes, that is the statement win for the Patriots. Getting a home win against Buffalo late in the season, proving that you're going in the right direction. You can't hang with Baltimore. You lose that one. You lose in New York, and then you beat Miami. That all feels very plausible to me. I would quibble with some of the specific wins and losses, but the overall, well, it's the nature of football. You're probably going to lose to a couple teams, or at least one team, that are worse than you, and you're probably going to beat a team or two that's better than you.
I mean, and that happens every year in the NFL, right? I still remember
we beat the Bengals last year.
We beat the Bengals last year. We went in 2023. We went into Pittsburgh and won when Pittsburgh was like a fringe playoff team. Lost to them, beat them, and it was like we were awful, right? We obviously finished season 4-13, right? So it's like, you can't really predict what's going to happen from year to year. Even in 2022, we went into Green Bay and almost beat them, for goodness sake, right? And so
with third string Bailey Zappi playing, with no practice,
yeah, and so that's for me at least, I look at it and think, first of all, let's remember what the Patriots are, right? The Patriots were the single worst team in football last year. That's correct. That's right, boys and girls. They're the worst. But Pat, they didn't have the number 1 pick. That's not true. Oh, yes, it is. Because the Buffalo Bills intentionally lost in game 17, and the Patriots won their 4th game. They should have been 3-14 last year. Instead, they were 4-13. They should have been the worst team in the league. They were the worst team in the league last year. Period. They were the worst team in the league. Okay. And so for me, I look at that and say, okay, you're the worst team in the league. You're going to go from the worst team in the league to the playoffs in 1 year? That's insane. That's lunacy to think that that's going to happen. And so for me, I look at it and say, yeah, you can get 8 wins. That's a win. That's you moving in the right direction. And so I just think people have overblown this stuff way too much. And it's just like, all right, let's get to 8 wins, and then we feel good about where we're going. And then next year we can talk about winning 10 or 11 games.
Well, I also think the difference between 6 and 9 wins this year may just come down to, who picks up a loose ball in a game, or, which kicker is able to make a kick. This team may end up being better, and then, you got a rookie kicker who misses a kick, and you lose a game because of that. That stuff happens. Close games get determined by players who you think would have no business determining the outcome of an NFL football game. So, and that'll probably work in their favor and against their favor too.
I agree. By the way, this argument is just true. This drives me insane. The Commanders in 2023, they were trash. I agree. They made the NFC Championship game. They won 6, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. They won 6 games, 6, with a last-minute drive to win the game. 6 times. Jaden Daniels did it. It's never happened before in the history of the NFL for a rookie quarterback to play that well. Yeah, 6 times in I believe it's the second half of the fourth, not even the fourth quarter, like the second half of the fourth quarter. He drove down and won them the game. And so for me, yeah, sure, the Commander, absolutely. Even if they go 3-3 in that situation instead of 6-0, it's a completely different team, and they might even miss the playoffs. So that's my point, right? Is that you play out of your mind, and everything breaks your way, and you end up winning those games. And hey, credit to them, they did it, right? Credit to them, they did it. But the Patriots are not that team. They're not. Sorry, but they're not that team. And again, if everything breaks right their way, if everything goes their way, and all those things fall into place that they did for the Commanders last year, sure, that could happen. But am I looking at that saying, well, the Patriots can do that. The Commanders did it, so they could do it. And it's just like, that's just so unrealistic. It's not outside the realm of possibility, but it's just unrealistic.
When it's also, I think you look at the Commanders, and it's easy to I think their record ends up being a little bit inflated from how good the team actually was last year. They played a lot of bad teams, won a lot of close games, and then they're still obviously a good team, but they played close games in the playoffs. You win on a walk-off field goal on the road in the first round, and then the second round, the Lions just implode on themselves. And obviously, Washington played very well to take advantage of that, and in some cases, cause that to happen. I don't want to take away too much credit here, but if Washington ends up, losing to Tampa in that first game instead, we're not talking about them the same way. The way we talk about them is influenced by the way a couple very close games went in the playoffs. When they went up against the Eagles, who were the bar here, that's what you're trying to be in the NFL. It was not competitive. So, we'll see. But when even doing that is hard. Being that close to being in the Super Bowl. Is it sustainable? That's, I think, one of the stories for me to watch is how much of what Washington did last year is sustainable. You go from worst to first like that, oftentimes you kind of fall back down a little bit. Not to first, but worst to playoffs. You fall back down a little bit the next year. So I wonder how that works for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, schedule-wise, regardless, right? Everything breaks your way. If everything breaks your way and you get all the breaks as the Commanders did last year, sure, Patriots could make the playoffs and win 11 games and it'd be great. I just don't expect that to happen. I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't expect that to happen. I don't live my life expecting. And by the way, one of the reasons why I don't do that anymore is because Mac Jones in 2023, I was so convinced that Mac Jones is going to be good and the Patriots, all the things that the Patriots had bet on were going to go right. And I was like, they're going 11-6 is going to be great. They're going to be this. They're going to be that. They're going to be this. And they sucked. They went 4-13. And so what I'm doing now is taking a more realistic approach at things. Let's take a look at it and let's actually think like this is what most likely will happen. Not guaranteed, but most likely will happen. And I think that, the most likely set of outcomes is the Patriots win 7 or 8 games. Could the Patriots win more than that? Yes, they could. They absolutely could if everything breaks their way. But I'm not betting that everything's going to break their way because it's just not realistic. Ultimately,
some things will and some things won't.
Right. And ultimately, if I'm sitting here talking about luck, it's just that's just stupid. It's just what are we even talking about? If I'm talking about, well, if everything breaks their way, they'll be fine. And it's yeah, but things may not break their way. Mathematically, it just probably doesn't happen.
Yeah. By the way, just a shout out to clarify something because there's strength of schedule discussion in the chat right now. Looking back on a team's strength of schedule during a season matters for how they performed. Rejecting strength of schedule oftentimes just ends up not really being an accurate measure of how tough the schedule you faced was because so many things change during a season. Injuries making teams worse, guys, players developing that you don't expect, and then random luck in there. It's just not all that great of a measure to determine how easy your schedule is going to be. New England's schedule looks easy right now. If they're able to have a halfway competent offensive line, they should win 9 or 10 games. I'm just not at all convinced that they're going to have that based on what we've seen so far. I think we're still just trying to get out of that last place for pass blocking. I want to see that first before I get my eyes set on anything higher than that. And I don't think they're a great team right now. So they're going to play bad teams and they're going to lose to something. That's, I think, life in the NFL right now until we see them do something other than that.
Yep. By the way, the Commanders had were tied for the 16th best or 16th worst, I guess, strength of schedule last year before the season started. So you can talk about them having an easy strength of schedule after the season, but before the season, it looked like they were going to be middle of the road. And so, that's why one of those things where I can look at it and just say, oh, okay, well, sure. And Danny's true. He's right about that.
Danny says we also have to consider the teams we consider easy. Also consider the Pats as an easy win.
Right.
So we'll see what happens this year. It's a very high variance season, and I think it starts with getting the basics down.
And I think the biggest thing for me is that this year is going to be a running football team. They want to establish their dominance in the run game. They want to kind of become that type of team, and everything's going to play off of that. And so, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I think ultimately, they could be successful doing that. But we'll see.
Yeah. So, I think that does it for this one.
That's it. We're going to be back
Saturday night.
Saturday night after the game. So, of course, game's at 1:00 on Saturday. We're going to kind of do what we normally do, which is on a regular Sunday, we would be live in halftime of Monday Night Football. I don't believe there's a Saturday night football game, so we won't be live at halftime of that, but we'll be live probably 10 o'clock on Saturday night, maybe a little bit earlier, we'll see. But probably 10 o'clock on Saturday night. We'll see you there, and enjoy the game, everyone. Be good to each other.